DJ LeRoy.
NightWatchman. How you doing, buddy?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. How was the week? Do tell.
Always a good one when you get from one to the other. But I celebrated a birthday, so it was a great week.
Oh, that's right. You still trying to catch up to me, huh?
Hey, man. I hope to never catch up to you.
Oh man, that's why I love you. Well, you know what? Remember, it's all about art, brother. It's all about art, and it can take many forms. We can have visual, we can have performance, we can have what? We can even have Bob, a rapping fireman. Can you believe that?
Okay, so we put together a very interesting show today.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So you know what? Why don't we literally let's get to it, as they say.
Okay.
First off, I guess you know what? We're definitely going to have a returning guest. He's been to Soul Lounge Primetime before with actually a group of actors, and at this time, I think he might have still been an FBI agent on Power. Can you believe it? And that, of course, is the one, the only, the producing director, creative person, the force behind the classical theater in Harlem, bringing up Ty Jones. Yes.
All right.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Happy birthday.
There it goes. There's your
birthday. Had my birthday, too. So I'm trying to catch up to you, too, Art. Curtis.
Oh, my God. So what is this? All these Pisces up in this house?
Right.
Huh?
Hey.
And I'm sorry. Dr. Ty Jones. Sorry.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay. Well, next gentleman I want to actually bring out is someone who I consider a mentor, a friend. I mean, he's just always been like super right on whenever I've been in his presence, willing to assist, willing to help, willing to do all those things. As the founder, and I would say one of the creative people behind the New Heritage Theater, that is none other than Mr. Voza Rivers. Voza! So, NightWatchman, you said that you wanted to actually bring this next guest up because, remember, you kept just in my head, even though I didn't own one, I thought about having my leather jacket and also a beret. Because you said Panther, baby. That's what you said.
Well, I can tell you that this gentleman credits his time spent in the Black Panther Party and Leavenworth Federal Prison as the fire that forged his creative sword. And while in prison, he earned 2 college degrees, wrote 5 plays, 2 volumes of poetry, and founded a groundbreaking theater company that brought prisoners together who had previously been divided by race, culture, and violence. So we're talking about the man who went from Panther to prisoner to poet, producer, and professor, Mr. Jamal Jones.
There you go. Give it up. Come on.
Come on. You're supposed to help here, Curtis. I can't push all
the buttons. Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. You're absolutely right. Now, next brother, this is his first time, but literally, okay, let me just say this. So Karen and I went to a play at the American Theater Actors Theater American. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it correct. But anyway, he also enlightened me to something I had not known about there being an East Harlem Repertory Theater. Did you know about this, NightWatchman?
I do, yes. What do you think I'm going to say?
Well, you know what? I'll let him actually tell his story. But he has been known in our community as the rapping fireman, telling young people about, hey, Mr. John Ruiz Miranda, get it up.
Thank you for having me on the show, Curtis, and NightWatchman.
Yes,
all right.
Yes, indeed.
The legends on the stage right now.
Exactly. Yes, indeed. And you know what, Jamal? I'm not letting you get away with this because literally my wife, Karen Murray, said to mention that she narrated the book Power Hungry. So, yes, look out for Karen Murray with Power Hungry. So, yes, she wanted to give you a shout out there, you know?
Oh, right on. Shout out to her. Good morning, everybody.
Got it. Yes. Good morning. All right. So, gentlemen, needless to say, we've been in lockdown. but still creative juices always flow. They don't stop. All right. So I definitely need to know. And Ty, you know, I've always been up on your stuff, especially when we have the openings there in Marcus Garvey Park.
Yeah.
So I need to know for Classical Theater in Harlem. I also attended a nice, beautiful little event there in Bryant Park.
Yeah.
But I need to know what's going to be happening this summer.
This summer we're doing 12th Night, directed by the chair of the NYU grad acting program and associate artistic director of CTH, Carl Cofield.
Oh, Carl.
Yeah, and we've already are in talks with Shakespeare Center LA, and so there's a strong possibility. We hope we'll find out in the next 10 days or so if we'll be taking that 10th night to Shakespeare Center LA. Also, we've already been told that Skirball, Center for the Performing Arts downtown at NYU, already wants our production of 12th Night. So we've already got a full season of at least sort of main stage shows. We've got a bunch of interstitial things going on. We're trying to find a space to do our Christmas Carol in Harlem. I think there's, some institutions uptown are still have yet to pull the trigger on whether or not their spaces are going to be available. So we're sort of in limbo about that. And then pretty excited about the possibility of being in the Victoria. We've reached out to them several times too. I think they're still also in some sort of flux about whether or not space will be available. But we're ready to make a deposit on some projects that you saw at Bryant Park, the Langston in Harlem and Harlem Dream. So
nice, very good. Well, I gotta say, for me, John Ruiz Miranda. Now, of course, having seen Mandela in the flesh, I told you that the expectations were, but when you actually see it, oh my God, that is a beautiful revelation there, John. So please, now it has stopped its run as of the 27th of February, but you're going to be bringing it back in the summer. And so please tell us that. And also, please tell us about Yolanda, who's not joining you. Okay.
Right. So we the last show was February 27th, and our next run will be in July, from July to the end of August. So it'll be about 8 weeks. We'll do about 5 shows a week at the American Theater of Actors. It's a wonderful stage. I mean, it has a balcony over the stage all the way around. So, and we use every part of that stage as a blank canvas. Our actors are emotional athletes, and everyone that comes to see the play, they're just in awe of the ability of our actors. I mean, they're incredible. Our theater company has been around since 2009. I've been in theater since 1983. I studied at Strasberg. I put on, I don't know, maybe 40 different plays. Yolanda Brooks is the executive producer. I'm the director of the show, and we're co-writers. And what's great about what we do in the East Harlem Repertory Theater is we educate 30,000 children a year. So when a child boards one of those cheese buses and they go to Lehman College, Queens College, Brooklyn College, Wagner College, York College, any of those colleges that the capacity is 2,200 kids, they're coming to see our production, whether it's Nat Turner, whether it's Pocahontas, whether it's Tribute to African-American Inventors, whether it's Pathways to Freedom or Mandela or our very own Motown, they're going to get education and entertainment at the same time. So they walk in and they leave out with smiles on their faces. And I'm telling you, we pack them. Kids, I mean, every show is about 2,000 to 2,100 kids. We do 2 shows a day. About 30 to 40,000 young men and women a year come through our doors. And then Mandela, of course, is at a bigger theater down in the 50s. We started on 46th Street at the Actors Temple Theater. We were there during the pandemic, which was kind of, daring for us. But let me tell you, we've sold out almost every show. And some people, especially from the churches, came back 2 and 3 times.
Wow.
There was so much information. And we use a lot of humor in how we deliver our presentation. I think you can attest to that.
Yes, indeed. So, yeah, powerful play, no doubt. Love the fact that, it's a teaching moment for folks, not just young people, but also adults, too, who don't know the history. And so, my brother, my mentor, Voza, please, I want to know, first of all, people don't know your journey in terms of being a man in blue serving the community, but then also this streak there in terms of acting and putting performing arts forefront in the community to help really, really, in some cases, heal it. So please tell us your journey, Voza.
Yeah, in 1964, I had the opportunity to meet a man from the community who was a member of the American Negro Theater named Roger Furman. And I met him at a workshop on public speaking because I attended the class so that I could be more articulate around the things that were happening in the South and in the North and all of the dysfunction that was happening in the streets. And he shared with me the history of the American Negro Theater, and then he mentioned that he was starting his own theater company. I was not interested in being in theater. I knew nothing about Black theater. I was more on the sports side and just doing other things. But I said that I would volunteer. That volunteer opportunity with him, Roger Furman started his own theater, introduced me to Ozzie Davis and Ruby Dee and Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier and Gertrude Jeanette, and the list goes on. The people that I met who wrapped their arms around Roger Furman, who wanted to start his theater based on the American Negro Theater model, and it was volunteerism. Being a volunteer for 6 years, Roger asked me to step up, and that's something that I did. And I worked very closely with him in about 6 different titles, from maintenance person to box office manager to marketing, publicity, to focusing lights and painting sets and all of those other things. When Roger died in '83, I was asked to take over the theater by the board. And then that's when I started expanding on his vision and expanding on the work of the American Negro Theater by going international and being involved in bringing theater from South Africa. So when I hear John talk about Mandela or you know, it touches home to me because I was denied an opportunity to visit South Africa because of my other theater's work in activism. And I was blacklisted and prevented from going to South Africa to see the work. But stayed the course, put the work into the United States to our little theater on Lenox Avenue and 125th Street. And from there, we were able to touch not only the community, but the world. That's when Harry Belafonte came to see the work. That's when Quincy Jones came, Paul Simon, Mary McCabe, Fela. All of these people came to this really small 150-seat theater that sat on 125th Street and Lenox. And from there, Harry Belafonte takes the shows to Broadway. So the next 2 shows we did, they both went to Broadway. All were nominated for Tony Awards. And then through all of this, I meet this fantastic person named Jamal Joseph. And my life changed. And working with Jamal and being able to now focus on expanding the footprint of what we created in 1964 and doing some magical things in 1987. And I can stop there. And when you mentioned when you mentioned being a police officer in blue, what was unique about Jamal and I is that I was a detective for many years, but I wasn't a detective. I had my own business. I had a firm with a group of lawyers, and we did contract negotiations, financial planning, taxes, and legal work. All of this while I was in the police department like Jamal. I got all my degrees. I accepted the law school, and but I wanted to keep it local, keep it in the community. And then I meet this wonderful person that you will hear from by the name of Jamal Joseph in my world.
Jamal, well, what better way than to segue right into you, my brother? Do tell your journey.
as was mentioned earlier, I was a member of the Black Panther Party and was arrested at 16 years old as a member of a case known as the New York Panther 21, where I was facing 300 plus years in prison. Afeni Shakur was part of that case, Tupac's mom. And while in prison, started writing, formed a theater company. There was a vibrant Black arts movement that was happening primarily in Harlem during the same time of the liberation struggle. So when you think of Sonia Sanchez and the Last Poets and Amiri Baraka, when you think of New Heritage Theater, National Black Theater, the New Renaissance Theater, these amazing works about struggle, about what was going on, was coming out of the Harlem community. So I returned to Harlem and was fortunate to meet Voza Rivers. I had heard about him while I was in prison, and we were introduced by an amazing woman named Yuri Kochiyama, a Japanese woman who was an activist in Harlem. She's revered in the movement. She was good friends with Malcolm X. Brother Malcolm would come to her apartment in the projects on 126th Street to have lunch, to have tea. In fact, when Brother Malcolm was shot at the Schomburg, there was a photo of Yuri Kochiyama, who was the only Asian woman that was a member of the Organization of African American Unity, cradling his head moments before he passed away. And Voza invited me as a young activist and playwright to be part of the theater. So together, some of my plays got produced. I began directing, and we founded an organization along with Joyce Joseph, my wife, Alice Arlen, called Impact Repertory Theater. This was a time when Harlem, New York City, and Harlem was in the midst of the crack epidemic, the crack wars. Giuliani was the mayor. He had increased funding to the police department, but slashed cultural programs and after-school programs. And Voza and I got together and said we knew how important the arts were. We knew that historically for Black people that the music, the dance, the drama, the poetry that our people created was the heartbeat of struggle, of liberation, of stories passed on. We know what that meant to our people when they were in the fields, playing drums, singing those spirituals that were giving encouragement, that were pointing out the routes to the North in terms of that freedom train. And so we began with very little money to create an organization that gave free training in music, dance, drama, and really important activism. How do you take control of your own lives to young people? And that grew from 10 people in the basement of a community center to an organization that over the last 25 years, this would be our 25th year. And as part of New Heritage Theater, this is our flagship program that has serviced over 5,000 young people in the spirit of education, art, and them being leaders, not of tomorrow, but leaders of today. Voza also supported the work that I was doing as a filmmaker. I started taking film courses at places like Third World Newsreel, and we began creating documentaries and film projects. We created a film division within the New Heritage Theater organization, where we featured Harlem arts organizations, activists, and created some stories. We produced a film along with Cheryl Hill called Chapter and Verse that was set in Harlem. Starring the amazing Daniel Beatty. And now we're doing a series of works that feature that. And there's a series of work that we're doing around Tupac Shakur and Afeni Shakur. Afeni was my mentor and big sister in the Black Panther Party. Tupac was my godson.
Nice.
And a lot of people forget that they were Harlemites right here in the community.
That's right.
In Harlem.
That's right.
Tupac got his training by the late, great Ernie McClintock at 127th Street Repertory Theater and starred as a child and Raisin in the Sun at the Apollo Theater. So our work has been about that, the legacy work, but very importantly, about planting the seeds for our future. The history of our future is in the heart, soul, creative spirit, and activist spirit of our young people.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent. Ty, how come you didn't just become an Army brat? And you instead, of
Good
course,
question.
followed your passion. Go ahead.
Yeah. So just to inform the listeners and the viewers, my mother was a 22-year veteran in the United States Air Force.
Wow. Thank you. Yes.
She's awesome. She's still with us still. And so I was born in East New York, out in Brooklyn. Mom and dad split, and that's when she joined the military. So I was about 5 years old then, and that took us from New York City. I mean, I like to say that I was in black East New York, and then when I moved to Missouri, at Knob Noster, Missouri, at Whiteman Air Force Base, I was the raisin in the oatmeal. So it was a big change. And then we went from there to Germany, another culture shock. But honestly, probably the best place I've ever lived. It was amazing. 3 years there, 3 years in Dyess Air Force Base in Texas, 3 years at Dover, Delaware, and then my mother went back overseas to Darmstadt, where she was the head of the education and the entertainment page for the European Stars and Stripes. So at one point, I did sort of follow my mom's lead because when I went to college, I was a communications major. So she was obviously a journalist, but I wanted to do broadcast journalism. I wanted to be in front of the camera, right? And there was at one point in time, I was going to apply for the Air Force Academy. And I ended up getting a full ride to the University of Delaware and just chose Delaware. That's just what it came down to. So there was a chance that, it was in my head to do it. But ended up, going to college in Delaware and got my master's there, got an honorary doctorate there. So, Delaware's been very good to me. So that's the only reason why I didn't, follow. But much of my life is shaped around the military. So even the way that I think about how the travels that I've had has formed my worldview, that, we all are far more alike than we are different. But I've seen how the darker faces of this planet are treated all over the globe. And it's going to be important for us to, stand on the shoulders of people like Jamal and Voza and all the folks in this room, because I don't think people really understand the real work that, Voza and Jamal and the members of the Black Panther Party, what they really had to do. It's not even that white folks don't really know it, Black folks too. And it's not to disparage anybody. It's so deep, and how it's ingrained and embedded in every aspect, every pillar of our society. And to be able to sort of peel some of that stuff back, no one person can do it. No one institution can do it. But I feel like one of the ways to do it is through the arts. It's an opportunity for a lot of people to come together to see a great piece of art with no other agenda. You hope that conversation can be created when people come together, and hopefully move people in some sort of profound way or some measurable way. But it clearly, what we see is that, we can look at all those stories that have been written 2,000-3,000 years ago, starting with, the African stories to the Greek stories. And there is a strange cycle that the human beings go through. And I try to do pieces, whenever we choose pieces, I try to choose works that talk about the world in which we live in today. So I'll just give a quick example. So like in 2016, we did the Scottish play. We did Macbeth. Because I personally believe that that is Shakespeare's most politically significant play. And 2016 was politically significant time.
Yes, indeed.
And then we did a play called Fit for a Queen, which was about Queen Hatshepsut. And it was written by Betty Shamia, multiple award-winning playwright. She's currently our Mellon playwright in residence. And, it's about Hatshepsut, where she was a ruler for many years. And, at one point in time, she even tried to look like a man. And I have to admit, I thought Hillary was going to win in 2016. So I was like, okay, what's the world going to be like with this woman who is essentially going to be the ruler of the world? People look at United States as being the empire that it is. So we continue to do that. We did Three Musketeers because at the time, it's like, look, people of different backgrounds are going to have to get together, find some consensus, all for one and one for all kind of thing. So that's what we try to do. And this past, these next few years are all going to be about trying to highlight folks from the Harlem Renaissance that we don't know as much about. But again, there's lessons that have already that we can learn from these texts, from arts, from poetry, just from 100 years ago. But we also can learn a lot from what happened, thousands of years ago, because the artists put it down. And I think it's up to us to continue to inform, our constituency, our patrons, our people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And John Ruiz, please tell me about your journey, but also importantly, the East Harlem Repertory Theater. Tell me about that history, which I did not know until my wife and I had attended Mandela. So please tell.
Yeah, well, I was a New York City firefighter back in the early 80s. 1983, I came on the job. And being a fireman in 1983, New York City Fire Department was like being a man of color down in the deep South in the 60s.
Wow.
I mean, I was one out of 179 Latino firefighters out of 14,000 white firefighters, one out of 300 African-American Vulcan firefighters out of 14,000 firefighters. So, it wasn't easy.
Yeah, not at all.
And at that time, I realized that the New York City Fire Department didn't really have a recruitment program, and they didn't have a fire safety program. So I decided to, I was a DJ, part-time DJ. So I said, what happens if there was a rapid fireman? How corny could that be? But then, I found a place that made these mini fire trucks. So I bought one of them. It was really expensive. And then I took out a pension loan and bought a little robot. And I went to all the schools in New York City. I would give away fire helmets. I started writing books, coloring books, so that kids, could take it home with them, the lesson. And I gave it away for free, did the shows for free. I went bankrupt 6 years ago. I was living in a tenement building with my kids. All my money was going to this program, and the government wasn't helping me out. Nobody was helping me out, And what eventually happened was a young lady, well, she wasn't young anyway, by the name of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis came into my life, and I got the Presidential Award. And then Scholastic put me on every book throughout the world. And then they sold my books. I sold like 1 million books. I was like, wow, I can repay back my pension, and then, of course, Voza and Harlem Week and the National, the Black Expo, the Hispanic Expo, other organizations called me in to teach children about safety, which was important because at that time, it was children of color that were playing with matches that I was pulling out of these buildings, and though the fire department saw it as work, they saw me as someone that was interrupting that work, So I had a giant X on my back for years.
Gotcha.
I won a lot of different awards, and theater was always my thing. In 1989, I entered this talent show, citywide talent show. I had nothing better to do. And I went past the first round. I said, I got lucky. Let me go back. Went past the second round. It was a citywide talent search by NYCHA. Went the fourth round, the fifth round, sixth round, and I wound up at Strasbourg for the finals. And I started to walk out, man. They had some Denzel Washington. And I'm like, man, I can't even hold their ring, man. What am I doing? And on the way out, they announced me as the winner. I'm like, what?
Congrats.
Right?
Nice. Very nice.
So, started the East Harlem Repertory Theater in 2009. Was writing a lot of plays, and I saw that the Board of Ed had scrapped that cultural program. And, my children are African-American. And I went to school, and my son came home and said, Dad, who's Martin Luther King? And it was Black History Month. And I said,
wow.
What? So I went to the school and I asked a couple of kids, do you know who Malcolm X is? Do you know who Martin Luther King is? Do you know about African-American inventors? And that's when me and my wife, Yolanda, started writing books and writing plays, about African culture, about American culture, African-American culture, but American culture. That history that should be taught. Yes. When you open up these history books right now, you see Christopher Columbus, what he did to the indigenous, you see everything, but our contributions. We made America great.
Yes, indeed.
We made America great. And, just started doing plays. And I'll tell you something, the first play we did, I worked a lot with Lou Myers. He was one of my first acting coaches when I was 14 years old. at Mount Morris Park. And we did a show, Pathways to Freedom. And I thought that, it was at Brooklyn College. It fits 2,200 kids. We sold 4,000 tickets.
Nice.
4,000
Wow.
tickets. So that the need was there. The hunger was there for this education, and from then on, the East Harlem Repertory Theater, not to be confused with the Harlem Repertory Theater, which is a fine theater company run by a friend of mine named Keith. And we started our journey. We wound up at the National Black Theater doing some presentations there. And I remember Sade Lipcott said, after she saw Mandela there, she said, "East Harlem Repertory Theater, where have you been?"
Oh, nice. Very nice. And see, that's exactly the type of story that we need. And you said it right. There is no Black history. It is American history. Okay.
Exactly.
Literally, if we had not existed, this country's, remember, wealth, power, all of that would be nothing, minimal. So, Voza, please tell me, how are you managing to balance all these things? Because remember, as executive vice president of the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce, and knowing that, of course, the signature event being Harlem Week, you got to tell me how you keep it all together.
I think of it like being a spoke with a lot of wheels, but that spoke connects it all. And what I've tried to do over the years is that whatever opportunities come my way, I look for ways to connect it to something else I'm always doing. When you asked me early on about being in the police department, it wasn't that I was in the police department as a detective. It was what I was able to do because there was a man by the name of Percy Sutton, who was, the borough president of I would say of New York City, because it was Harlem, but he was such a force who encouraged me to get into the police department at that time. And he said that I will look after you. And as a result of that, knowing that I was mentored by Roger Furman at first theater, Percy Sutton comes into my life. He gets an opportunity to have a record company called Apollo Theater Records, and appoints me as the chief operating officer of Apollo Theater Records. Now I'm in music. And then all of a sudden, I see music and theater all coming together in this magnificent way. I mentioned early that the stopping point for me was after I had graduated with a master's, with a bachelor's degree. What should I do? Because I had some young guys that I grew up with, and we always thought, wouldn't it be great if we had a law firm? And I promised them, they were fortunate enough to go to Yale and Harvard, but they were all street guys with me growing up in Harlem. And I got out of, and all of this other work that I was doing, I just said, guys, let me pause for a second. You guys are now in law school. I'm retiring from the police department. If I'm going to go and get a further education, I need to find something that I could get in 1 year, 2 years, but I don't want to go 4 more years to school. And it was through that prism that I looked at creating an arts and entertainment company, in addition to being involved with the theater, in addition to now being invited by downtown Lincoln Center Theater in particular to do work. Not that it was going to be downtown, but it was going to be done right in Harlem. And we created festivals. We traveled all over the country. The South African component blew up. And then positively, when I say blew up, because we had 4 shows from South Africa that were historic in content, and for the country, it was major for South Africa. When I went to South Africa a few years ago, you would have thought I was Marcus Garvey. the kind of reception that I received by people who remembered that period of time in the 80s, the period of the increase in apartheid, and knowing that America and blacks in particular helped dismantle apartheid through our activism, and I was a part of that using theater as a vehicle. It was just unbelievable. When you talk about what also happens, Lloyd and I, we were Boy Scouts together in St. Martin's Church on Lenox Avenue in Harlem, and now he is the president of the chamber. I am the first vice president of the chamber, and we're celebrating 125 years. And these two kids from Harlem still working together. It's the same story repeated over again with Jamal and I. You know, we've been on this journey together. I look up and now I'm finding out that our theater is the oldest Black not-for-profit theater in New York State with continuous programming. We're 57 years old. This year we're going to turn 58. Our history has been documented and captured in the Schomburg Center for the first 50 years of our history. It's there. So our goal has always been to keep it local with a global imprint. And that's what we've been able to do. And during these health challenges over the last 2 years, we've connected with South Africa, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Japan, and Cuba. We're bringing these artists together. We videotape them and put them up on YouTube, etc. They're all singing the same songs and music created by the Impact Repertory Theater. And lastly, several months ago, we received an invitation that in Japan, they are creating Impact Japan, and our young people will be traveling to Japan to teach our method of how we do what we do.
You are on mute, brother, but I'm going to use that opportunity to say a few things.
Go ahead, NightWatchman. Go ahead.
So, first of all, Voza, thank you so much for sharing this stuff. Both Curtis and I were excited about doing this show because we felt like in the scope of things that you gentlemen have done over the years, we haven't had a proper opportunity to just kind of look back in retrospect and really just understand how massive and important it was. But I really was touched by what you said about keeping it local, because I think we all know that the talent here in this particular show could be in Hollywood, could be in network TV, but the decision to keep it local, really just stems from that strain. And Ty talked about it, referencing the Harlem Renaissance, and we've seen this connection from the Harlem Renaissance to what's going on to the 60s to what you guys are doing now, which is the activism, the use of storytelling to keep our stories present and protected from what I call eracism, which is every generation when we achieve something, the next generation, somehow the stories get erased. But because we've got cultural warriors like you guys who continue to reach back and put the stories out, we're able to make sure that new generations coming up hear this. So I wanted to hear your guys' opinion on the state of eracism today, as we're hearing all this critical race theory stuff, and just talk about how you feel the arts and culture, is just as important now, or maybe even more important than it's ever been.
Oh goodness, how much time do we have?
Go ahead, Ty. Take it.
Okay. Okay. So everybody, and I'm okay if people disagree with me with this. So 2 years, I know we're talking about the reckoning that I think that's the word that's been used because of George Floyd.
George Floyd.
And let me tell you what's been missed though. Amy Cooper. So we can talk about George Floyd all we want because we recognize the Derek Chauvins of the world. We every black person recognizes those folks. Forgive me for using this word because it's not the right word. Forgive me. But the upside about those folks is that we can see it. Like I prefer racism in my face and I know what to deal with. Like my folks are from Mississippi, rural Mississippi. And it's something that they always told me. It was like, look, the thing about the South is this. If there's a line drawn, Charlie will say, don't you come in my yard. But guess what? Yep. Charlie won't come in your yard either. All right.
That's right. Yeah.
In the North, they will piss on your back and tell you that it's raining. And so, you get the Amy Coopers of the world who will, oh, I voted for Obama. I'm a Democrat. I hate Trump or whatever. And that woman, thankfully, that no cop showed up because what she did is precisely the things that Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all of them talked about, especially Martin in his latter years when the United States couldn't stand him anymore. All that sort of white liberalism, that limousine liberalism. And the truth is, racism is brilliant. It's fluid. It moves around. It changes its shape. It's a chameleon. And our job is to figure out how to, sort of play the long game with this. And it's a very difficult thing because we ourselves, let's say in the theater world, oftentimes I see people looking at, these big institutions as the superlative. And that's what I love about what was said on this program today about localizing things is that 100 years ago, Black people were under siege, right? No political representation. No, forgive me for being sort of anachronistic here, but like no health care per se. But the people had to look to themselves 100 years ago, look out for each other. And it was a mixed community, gay folks, Black folks, light skinned, and yes, we had our own internal issues. And we had people at the time pointing out those internal issues that we had. But still, we critically looked at those things to eventually get to a place where we got Harlem Hospital. We critically looked at those things to eventually get to a place where we got representatives like Adam Clayton Powell. So I just feel like that, yes, we're going to have to continue to do that and do that again now because, this is a community under siege. There will be folks, and it's our, we've seen it where, people that have been doing the kinds of things that the people on this call, on this video conference have been doing, and folks will come in, not part of this neighborhood or whatever, will say all the right things, pat you on the back, and then at the end of the day, act like you're the interloper to try to push you out. You know what I mean? So that's the thing that I am noticing today. Last thing I'll say is this. I know I don't want to monopolize all the time. Is that I'm willing to be corrected on this. I may be wrong, but I think I just read in Forbes or something like that over the past 2 years of all the money that's been printed, and again, if I'm wrong, shut me up. Of all the money that's been printed in the United States, like upwards of 30 to 40% of it was printed in the last 2 years. And there's been a massive transfer of that wealth that went upward. So, a lot of institutions, and look, we needed to look out for our institutions in the theater and performing arts world. The shuttered venues, upwards of $10 million. Touring companies, $10 million. And right now, when I look at companies like us, we don't have our own space. We hope to one day. But we don't have our own space. We did get the PPP, but I was only able to extend the runway for my immediate folks that work for us. And, we kept their health insurance. Nobody got furloughed. But now as things open up, there are institutions that are sitting on cash to be able to, have room to fail, if you will. While I am struggling to talk to our funders to say, hey, look, thankful that you did help out in some way to some of these itinerant organizations, but you're going to actually need to double what you normally give. But a lot of them are going to go on pause for the next 12 months and sort of wait it out because there might be a recession and stuff like that. While the other cats that are up there, they're sitting on cash to be able to do things and produce like they normally can. So we got to really open our eyes. And the truth is, trust me, a lot of those folks are like, oh, we did the right thing and so on and so forth. But I'm like, I don't think you understand that you actually, we went one step forward and 5 steps back in the way that this money was distributed. All right.
No.
If I could jump in for a second.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Jamal.
Yeah. So I'm not going to agree with Ty. I'm going to emphatically say hallelujah to everything that he just said. A couple of things. First of all, Bob and Curtis, thank you for inviting us all. It's Absolutely. Really an honor. It's really an honor to be here with people who are doing griot work. The griot in Africa sat in the center of the village, often under a tree that was known as the Bao tree. And he or she had to do two things really well. They had to be entertaining, but they had to be educators. They had to do music and poetry and dance that entertained the children, the elders across generations. But they were historians, they were the journalists, but they were also prophets. They used that work to let people in the village know what was coming. So this kind of work that everybody on this panel has been doing and continues to do, Ty and John and Voza and myself, is that work, and understanding that it's bigger than just you and just you here. It is a community, and that we live in a community that represents the cultural and political and activist heartbeat of the world. And what's also been talked about is everyone struggled to survive. One of the legacies of the Black Panther Party, I mean, people know that Huey Newton and Bobby Seale patrolled the streets of Oakland, California with shotguns, law books, right? To, in a very intelligent way, deal with what was happening in a brave way to deal with what was happening with police brutality and terror throughout the country. The other great legacy, when you think about the Panthers, is what? The free breakfast program for children. And those free health clinics and liberation schools that survived, that became models for the free food programs that we see in schools, lunch programs, in schools and institutions across the country, those community clinics. It was featured in Judas and the Black Messiah. Hampton and Panthers had those clinics, that idea of community care, that idea that people could be partners in their own healing, that idea that we could do things without permission and out funding. Again, to go back to what Dr. Jones was talking about, we continue to do these things without permission. Yes, we see where the funding is going, where the support is going to those institutions that want to control, that want to kind of parcel out some things, but without permission and without funding, we've continued to do that work and to build those models. And it's why it's so important for people not just to see the film productions and the live shows and the theater productions, but to understand that model for survival. That has been our model to survive as a people, as an oppressed people, Black and brown people, from the diaspora for hundreds and hundreds of years. This is really important. And it's important to speak loudly about those inequities. And it's important for our young people that are coming out of these programs who will go to Yale and Harvard and Howard University, Columbia University, where I've been a professor in the School of the Arts for 24 years, to understand that kind of modeling, but really important, that kind of networking and working together so that we are building grassroots institutions that don't just have to survive in little pockets, but creating that kind of network. This is one of the greatness of Voza Rivers, is that long before funding cuts came, he talked about institutions working together. New Heritage, under Voza's leadership, has partnered and continued to partner with everyone, sometimes at a financial loss. But it was important to help that production or that institution to survive, because that has been the history of our struggle in liberation and understanding, working together. And we understand that, Harlem. We understand the days of the rent party or the fish fry, the neighbor for not being inclusive. We understand being there and the doors, being open so that, homelessness was not that a kid had no place to stay. There was always a door open and a bed or a couch for someone to sleep and be mentored. And we had that respect and love for the elders, because when a grandmother came down the street, that was everybody's grandma. If you were on the corner smoking a cigarette at 12 years old, forget a joint. If you were smoking a cigarette, everybody got a spanking from that grandmother, and then got a second one when you went home to find out that Mother Reynolds had to spank you for hanging out. So we need to hold those models up too, those extended family models in all of the work that we do.
Oh man. NightWatchman, what can you say here?
Man, I'm just so I just can't tell you how happy I am that we were able to get this crew together, and just to hear it, because it's so important. It's so important for us to look at now more than ever, of the work that's being done. John, I want to hear from you, because I know that we need to release you early. There's a bunch of school kids waiting for the rapping firemen to show up. So John, I just want you to kind of sound in on your thoughts on what we've been talking about.
I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Voza Rivers, Ty Jones, Jamal Joseph. Reading about you guys every day as my journey in theater. Community theater is suffering. It really is. When we were at the National Black Theater, at the beginning, we had maybe 20, 30 people come in, and we have a large cast. We have 20 members in our cast, plus there's the makeup person, there's the prop person, because we use guns. We had a tank that didn't make the show, a real one. That's a whole nother story. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all the white people started coming uptown into Harlem to see this play Mandela.
Yeah.
So one day I'm standing there as they're coming in, and the National Black Theater holds about 140. And about 75 white people are there that came from downtown to see this play. So I asked them, how'd you get here? And someone said, well, we took the train. I said, wait a minute, I'm talking about how'd you find out about the show? And they said it was the reviews. And that let us know that we can then go downtown into that Broadway district, which even is a whole different world when you get down there. It's a whole different world. It's a whole nother show we're talking about. I gotta be careful what I say. But we've been blessed, But it's the work of Voza and Ty and Jamal, man. Jamal. God bless you. Thank you, my brother. In fact, look what I got on. My diva.
Yeah. Very nice. And John, if folks want to hit you up, find out about what's going on in the East Harlem Repertory Theater, how can they do that?
You can go to MandelaNYC.com or OFCFNYC.com. They'll see all the shows that we're doing throughout the whole school year, and they'll see exactly when Mandela is coming back downtown. And I have an open invitation to Voza, Ty, and Jamal. Come on down, have some fun with us. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised.
Very nice. Very nice.
My brother.
Yes, indeed. So go do your rapping thing, John. Thank you so much, man, for joining us, man. Excellent, brother.
God bless you, each and every one of you. Thank you for your message.
You got it. Thanks, man. Yeah. So, you know what I actually need to know, certainly, and this is you, Jamal, and Voza, the screenwriters workshop that you guys do, highly competitive, but highly sought after. So please tell me about the creation of that. Anyone?
Voza, you're muted.
Oh, you muted, Voza. Nope, still muted.
See, Jamal, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, so a number of years ago, Jamal and I read an article that there were a lack of writers of color in the union, screenwriters, East Jamal, I think it was. And what we decided to do is to, again, address those issues. Jamal was at Columbia University, and we were able to create our own writers program. And we did it initially with the Harlem Arts Alliance and then with New Heritage. But Jamal was at the front of that. And I'd like Jamal to specifically address that issue because it became a gateway not only for what we were doing in the community, and we were taking in people with a story to tell. Jamal, why don't you take it from there?
So it's a program we started with an initial partnership with the Writers Guild of America and Columbia University, where we gave free screen and television workshops, workshops in screenwriting and television writing. And we've had students who've gone on to become members of the Writers Guild, to work in film, to work in television. For the last few years, our partner has been First Corinthian Baptist Church, under the leadership of Pastor Michael Waldron.
Yes.
And Pastor, Associate Pastor Desiree Elder. And we've been doing those workshops for free at the Dream Center twice a year. It's open to folks in the community. So we get people who have some screenwriting experience, other people who have no screenwriting experience, and give those classes and then mentorship for people to continue to write. We're going to start a cycle in May for young people. And so this will be a cycle. And so you'll be able to find it on New Heritage website, but also the Dream Center in Harlem under First Corinthian Baptist Church for registration for our young people to get free workshops in screenwriting and television writing. And so that's the idea, is just to create, in Impact, we have cardinal principles that we call SOS. In World War II, it stood for Morse code for save our ships. For us, it means save ourselves. And those things mean safe space, outstanding effort, in service to our family, friends, and community. So first, we want to create a safe space, and we want to create an environment where people are not competing with each other, but competing as family to get their voices heard, to develop their craft. And that service means, in whatever way, we want folks to pass it on. So as they do well in their careers, continue to do the work to give back, whether it's workshops, providing opportunities in doing that. So around all of the work that we do, that energy is present, that energy of us being a village, that energy in us receiving, but understanding that in the spirit of Sankofa, we have to get it, bring it back, and also pass it on.
Excellent, excellent. And Ty, you need to let me know about classical theater in terms of identifying a young talent, young hidden talent. What's your process?
So we actually, let's just say for our show, I'm just going to give you a direct example. What's normally done is that someone will have a casting director, and the casting director, their job is to find, X, Y, and Z for whatever particular show. So what we do instead is that we actually open it up to the world. So we'll use our social media pages. We'll create a spreadsheet. Everyone who's interested in auditioning, we'll also make sure that all the sides are available. They can download the sides. They put the time slot in that they're going to be there, and what role they're going for. And we will open it up, as opposed to it being curated by a casting director, which sometimes, I'm not saying all of them do this, they literally source from the same places, like Juilliard, Yale, NYU, Rutgers, whatever. And there's plenty of talent out there that may not have had access to the Juilliard, NYU's, Rutgers, and so on and so forth. So by doing that, we get to meet people like Khalil Daniel, who was the person who was the musical director for our Christmas Carol in Harlem. Also did the musical direction for that Bryant Park performance that you saw for the Langston in Harlem, that we hope to be able to do, hopefully sometime in 2023 at the, maybe at the Victoria Space. But that's what it is. It's actually about opening it up. And the truth is, you might get some folks that will say, that probably need some more professional training. But then you find hidden gems that you probably would not have seen had you used the traditional routes that's already been set up.
Excellent, excellent. So, NightWatchman, you know what? I need to do a little bit of housework here. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows that Art Crawl Harlem was going to be presenting Fire and Soul 2022. We're still Harlem, an art exhibit at the Heath Gallery, beginning tomorrow, March 12th. And literally running until April 2nd. So I want everyone to know about that. And NightWatchman, take us home.
Well, first of all, I gotta do this for these guys. Yeah, yes, absolutely. So you've been listening to Soul Lounge Primetime on WHCR 90.3 FM, or you might be checking out us out live on YouTube or Facebook. Please, if you're checking us out on social media, share this interview with your family and friends. You need to hear about this. Thank you so much, and you guys have an open invitation to come back.
Night Watchman, I want to know how to get in touch with them. That's what I want to know. And this is the lightning round. Ty, how do they get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with us by going to our website at CTH, Classical Theater Harlem, NYC.org, CTHNYC.org. We're on
Beautiful.
all social channels as well, too, IG, Facebook, Instagram.
Excellent. Voza, do tell. How do we get there, man?
New Heritage Theater, THEATRE.org. You can get New Heritage and Impact at that website.
Excellent, excellent. Jamal, you got it, man.
The same family,
Okay.
same family tree.
Love it. Night Watchman, go ahead, man. Take us.
What? All right. Well, you've been listening to Soul Lounge Primetime. Thank you. Check us out every Monday night, and thank you for joining us.
Yes. Gentlemen, thank you guys. Love you guys. Be safe.
Thank you.